Okay, so let me just quickly introduce our speaker. So Joe Callender led survey project teams providing services to clients in the areas of survey design, programming, analytics, and data visualization. Relevant clients include the University of Chicago, the American Resort Development Association, Northwestern Mutual, and Baker Hughes. Focus areas include industry surveys, employee engagement, and leading practice surveys. Joe Callender received MA degree in applied math and operations research from University of Maryland and a bachelor's degree in mathematics from Howard University. And he's a member of Institute for Operations Research and Management Science and the co-chair of the accounting and tax section. Joe wrote a paper on quality practices in conducting business surveys for the American Statistical Association and presented the same thing at the joint statistical meetings. And as far as I see, Joe is a very dedicated SciAm visiting lecturer. I see him all over other places giving talks. So we appreciate that he accepted our invitation to give a talk for the Science Student Chapter of Western Kentucky University. So before I take this stage over to him, I just want to say that Matthew, our chapter president, is going to be the one moderating this session and taking the questions from the audience. So Joe is going to give a talk about math. What are you going to do with that? So, all right, you can take the stage over. You can share whatever you want to. Joe, go for it.
Thank you. Let me share my screen. I think you should be able to see just what Dr. Ozer says. So first of all, let me thank you very much for inviting me to this talk to participate. As Dr. Ozer mentioned, I have done this talk a number of times at a few different SciAm chapters at different universities. First of all, I just enjoy it. I was telling him before we got on that I think, once I move on from this career at EY, I probably see myself going back into academia, doing some teaching. And I enjoy the interaction with the students and the opportunity to share, some things with you guys. So this is part of my job that I really like. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that. As the title slide on my presentation suggests, I am Managing Director of Quantitative Surveys here at EY. I'll tell you a little bit about my background and experience there in a minute. My name is Joe Callender. And the title of my talk, as was referenced, is Math. What are you going to do with that? And I title that because that's growing up. That I was always interested in math, but that was a question that I would always get. When I was thinking about potentially studying it more. And so I've attempted in this talk to kind of turn that on its head and really hopefully give you guys a better idea than what people gave me about some possibilities in terms of career opportunities in mathematics that are available to you guys, and really that were more available to me than I realized. And had I known about them up front, it would have saved me a lot of wasted time. And so I'm hoping to help you to avoid doing the same thing. So with that, I just want to quickly go over the outline of what I want to talk about today. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my journey away from and back to mathematics and learning more about it and participating in it. My current work that I do here at EY, where I've been for the last almost 20 years, and then a little bit of advice that I have for the students in terms of what they should study, what things that they should get involved in, what are some of the opportunities out there for math students like yourselves. So let's start with my journey. As you can see on my shirt and on the screen, I started my college career at Howard University. That's where I did my undergraduate work. I started as an architecture major because people would ask me that question, math, what are you gonna do with that? So I said, well, architecture seems like it's a way to have a job, but also have some math related aspect to it. And so I started off doing that. I discovered that it also had a drawing related aspect to it, which I was terrible at. I remember the professor of one of my classes took us out and we sat in front of this building that's pictured on the slide. And he said to the class, okay, why don't you guys take out your sketch pads and just draw this building. And I realized very quickly that that was not for me and that was not going to work out. So I stopped being an architecture major. After a semester, I went and I did chemistry because that was even more math related, but it wasn't purely math. You know, it was something where I thought, well, maybe I'll go and be a doctor like my dad, you know, and I can do something like that. And I was.
Can I intercept quickly?
Yes, yes.
I don't think that your screen is like full screen currently. So just say.
Okay, so I'm sharing the wrong screen. Maybe.
Just make it like full screen, yeah, essentially. So just wanted to, because you have some notes.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to avoid.
So.
Okay, so let me try this. Is that better or worse? Or
that is way better. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, so yeah, so I was in chemistry. I was thinking maybe I would do pre-med, something like that, and still be able to do some math stuff. So I was a chemistry major and a math minor, and I was really liked the chemistry classes, like you know, kind of the mathematical aspects of it, but I was really bad at like the laboratory. So I would, like, all my stuff I would use up, I would burn it up. I did nothing balanced. You know, I didn't achieve any of my goals in my labs, but I did really enjoy and do well at some of the other stuff in chemistry. And then I did particularly enjoy a lot of the math classes that I was taking in my math minor. And finally, you know, I took differential equations and I really enjoyed that. And I just decided during that class, you know what, I don't care. I'm just going to study math and let the chips fall where they may, because I just like it better. And so I did that. I switched to mathematics, and that's where I ended up getting my degree. So then I said, well, okay, what I'll do with it is I'll just go ahead and teach math. And so I for a year, taught 7th grade math, taught math in junior high school. And that was quite an experience that I didn't enjoy as much. And so it ended up sending me kicking and screaming and running into graduate school at the University of Maryland. And so that's kind of where I ended up, you know, deciding that I was going to study math and maybe teach at a higher level than 7th grade. So then I go to graduate school. I start off, I'm going to do a pure math PhD, right? Then life happened. I got married, and you know, early on in my career, and so I realized I wasn't going to be able to finish that degree. So I stopped, and I decided to do an applied math, and I just decided to do a master's and finish after a couple of years, and then go get a job and have kids and support my wife and do that sort of thing. So that worked out well. I studied operations research, as was suggested in my bio. And so that was nice because it allowed me to take classes both in the math department as well as in the business school. So I took a lot of linear programming, network optimization, things like that were pretty math oriented, but also had business focus. So it was a nice mix of the two. I did a master's thesis using cluster analysis, factor analysis, and linear and other types of regression. And then most important, I think probably the most important thing that I learned in graduate school was the importance of relationships. I had always been somebody who, through undergrad, through high school, throughout all my career, just kind of studied on my own. And my first semester in graduate school, I kind of paid the price for that. I did not do as well as I would have liked. And so after that, you know, that semester, I kind of really spent more time. We all had, as research assistants, we had offices. I spent a lot more time in that office. I was able to kind of do study with others and benefit from their experiences. And I realized that they all were kind of doing work together. And that's why a big part of the reason why they were being more successful than I was. And so I began to take advantage of that. And it benefited me not only in those classes that I was taking, but also in my future career, as I'll talk about going forward. Okay, so then after that, after graduate school, after I graduated there, I went to work. I went to work at a place called LMI, Logistics Management Institute, which is in Tyson's Corner, Virginia. And so I spent 3.5 years there. It's a defense contracting agency, and a lot of the people that worked there were retired Navy captains, Air Force colonels, Army colonels, and they were really the nicest people in the world. And I was kind of their math person. I was their math guru, which was great working with them. Like I said, they were great people, really nice, but I really wasn't kind of growing, from a quantitative perspective, wasn't growing my skills. And so I began to kind of look for something else so that I could grow a little more. So I found out through a colleague of mine that I had gone to graduate school with. I let her know. This is one of the people that were in the office that I was studying with. I let her know, that I was looking for a job and I wasn't really happy with where I was and wasn't growing. And she told me, she had a similar background to me, about this job that she was in at E&Y. And so I ended up going there, interviewing there. They had an opening in their survey group. I had never done a survey before in my life, but they were impressed with some of the work that I had done on my master's thesis that I had shared with them, and potential applications in the survey world. And so I got up to speed and became, kind of a survey person, and was able to kind of bring a bit more of a quantitative, focus, whereas some of the other ones that worked there were more focused on the questionnaire design and things like that. I was focused more on the analysis part. So I've been at E&Y since 2003. And I have led our survey group since 2014, since my predecessor retired. So again, that's an example there of where those relationships at University of Maryland not only benefited me in that time, but also led to something really important in the later parts of my career. All right, so now I want to talk a little bit about my current work. And so that's where I'll go next. So like I said, I lead our survey practice, and fortunately for you, I'm not going to go through this whole slide in detail, because as you can see, it's pretty rich in terms of its content. But we have a number of things that we do, a number of different types of work that we do for our clients, a number of different types of clients that we serve. But basically, we collect and analyze data. We use a lot of R programming. We use Qualtrics to collect our information. We have people that are really good at designing questionnaires, understanding things from a survey methodological perspective. And then we have people who are good programmers, and people who are good at kind of doing data visualization for us as well. And so I kind of help oversee that team. I have, I think, now 5 project managers that work for me, and I kind of help them lead those projects. And then they have within their own little part of the survey practice, they have teams that they lead and help serve clients, and interact with clients, and provide the analysis that we do. So I want to go through a few different examples of some of the work that we do that relates to both work that I did while I was in graduate school, and mathematics and different things, other than just because, like, a lot of times when you see surveys, you just think that it's okay, well, X% of people said this, or 52% of people think disapprove of Joe Biden, or whatever the case may be. And so you just think of it as a poll, but there's really a lot more that can be done with it, that we've tried to kind of bring to the fore. So one of the things that we've done is using some of the techniques that I used in my master's thesis, and they're really fairly old, and many of you probably are familiar with them. Factor analysis and cluster analysis to help kind of divide up the survey data, find patterns, find personas and things like that. And this has become really popular lately in survey research. So we did factor analysis in a number of situations. And basically, you can think of it like, you have a bunch of, Likert scale questions, which are 1 to 5 questions, that you can think of it as, agree, disagree type questions, right? And so you have, this set of questions here. And so you look for similar areas where people have answered similarly, using a principal components analysis to kind of winnow down these, large number of Likert scale questions into a much more workable set of factors that are kind of all correlated within the factor, so that you can think of things just along 3 dimensions as opposed to kind of, all these many different bars that are that are present here. So we basically were able to, in this particular case, take 25 Likert scale questions about the culture of this client that we were working for. We were conducting employee engagement surveys for this particular client. And we were asking them, how satisfied they were with the company along these 25 different dimensions. And what we were able to find out was that basically, yes, you've asked them 25 questions, but really there's only 3 general themes that matter, right? General overall culture of the company, how they interact with their local teams, and then kind of their overall impressions of the company's efficiency and quality. And those things kind of work together. And from that, we were able to kind of understand, okay, you can see, for example, in the team dynamics, there's a lot of questions about, how they interact with their manager, how they're empowered to work with as a team. Within my team, we are encouraged to take sensible risks, et cetera, et cetera. And so we were able to understand, which groups of people in this company rated their team highly and how that impacted their overall sense of engagement with the company itself, right? So that's one thing that we were able to do. The other thing that we were able to do in this same project, and we've done it in other projects before, is use cluster analysis. So factor analysis you can think of as kind of grouping the variables together. Cluster analysis is just a way of grouping the people together, right? And so you just use Euclidean distance or some other measure to say, okay, well, all these people that answered along, once you've developed these factors or questions, which people answered similarly along these 3 dimensions, that are important in understanding engagement, right? And so because of that, we're able to group their population, their large, this company had thousands and thousands of people, into into 4 basic groups of people that helps them understand their population, right? And one of the keys to cluster analysis is to come up with kind of corny, colorful names for the clusters. And so we did that here. We had the Eeyores, and we called them that because they thought everything was awful, and their team was bad, and the company was bad, and quality was bad, and everything like that. On the other end, we had the Pollyannas who thought everything was awesome, kind of like the Lego movie. And then in between, we had a group, that had some. They liked their team, they liked the culture of the company, but they had some concerns about quality. And as we dug deeper, we found out that, really their concerns were about the innovation, the lack of innovation at the company as we dug deeper. And then there was another group that really liked, their individual teams, and they liked, they liked the quality of the company and their commitment to doing things right, but they were kind of concerned about the overall direction of the company, right? And so doing this really helped kind of tell the story of what was going on in terms of engagement of these individuals. And so we were, I'm not going to go through all of these in detail, but we were able to, kind of by dividing these employees into certain groups, we were able to, work with our people advisory services group to come up with a plan for them to address some of the issues, that they had within the company. So, we were able to identify some strengths, kind of on the left, like the company's overall commitment to quality, to putting out a good product, their corporate culture of honesty, integrity, managers who empower and enable their employees, right? So we're able to differentiate, identify those strengths rather at the company level. We were able to notice some opportunities from improvement while the overall company was, viewed favorably. There were some pockets, where there was bad management that really needed to be addressed. And this is important because it helps you identify which employees are likely to leave. And then perhaps you can do some interventions, which our people advisory services were able to kind of couple with our survey analysis to tell them, here's some things that you should do in order to keep your people engaged, keep them interested in the company. I mentioned earlier that one of the areas for improvement was innovation, particularly around efficiency. That was a big concern that we identified. And then, which is probably not uncommon to this particular company, that's something that we often see, the importance of recognition and communication. Even amongst the folks that thought everything was great, that was an area where they could improve. So again,
we got one question. We got
yes.
one question. Tad, can you unmute yourself and ask your question, please?
Yeah, I was just going to ask about the cluster groups. Did you, once you identified those groups, did you do anything unique to the groups? Did you do follow-up questions within each group, or were the groups part of the analysis as it moved forward, or just kind of an after the fact?
So we did not go back and survey them again. So what we did is we came up with like a plan. My part of the firm just kind of worked at identifying a lot of these concerns. Then our people advisory services kind of went in with the company and did exactly what you're saying. So they actually went in, talked to them, had some focus groups and things like that. But once my part of the group kind of presented this report, we kind of stepped back, and our people group kind of took over.
Did the follow-up group use the clusters and
they did
break them up by clusters? Okay, they did.
They did. So, I mean, we weren't able to do it like at the individual level because all of these answers were confidential. So I couldn't say, Pat is a Eeyore, let's go and talk to him and find out why his manager is awful. That's not something that we could do, right? But, what you can do is you can say, okay, these departments are, kind of more prone to kind of having this type of individual. Here are some of the concerns that they've identified. Let's identify ways to go in and speak with their leadership and address it kind of more at a macro level than at a micro.
So Joe, there's probably strengths and weaknesses to doing that. What's just off the top of your head advice on when it's a good idea to use a cluster to customize, and when's it a bad idea? When would you have reservations about using it?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's a good question. I haven't thought about it that way. I think, understanding the general pockets of your population is important to I think this paints a good picture of it. Like if you're looking to do like micro level interventions, I think this is maybe not the way that you want to go. What we've done in some of those cases, working with some other groups, is to like come up with a score of employees and say, okay, here are the employees that are most likely to be leaving, right? And here are the concerns that they have, and that way, you might be able to go back to that individual, and if they're feeling like they're not being communicated with enough, speak to them about that. It varies depending on the survey and the level of confidentiality that you're able to, that you promised, to them, and the extent to which you can share that information with the company itself. Does that make sense? Okay, great. So anyway, that just kind of gives you a flavor of, how you can kind of use some of these mathematical techniques that you're studying in university, combined with business knowledge of these folks that maybe are not as quantitative, but using it to tell the story of the data, and do it in a way that allows you to kind of actually have an impact, within the companies itself. All right, so then we did another survey, a different survey with a university. of their alumni, where we were measuring their engagement with the university itself. And we wanted to be able to predict, whether or not that alumni, felt that the university valued them as an alumnus, right? And so, we had this question in our survey that asked that. We used a combination of demographic variables that were already available, as well as survey questions, to be able to predict that answer and build a model around it. And so we used we tested out a couple of different models to see which had the most predictive power. We use random forest model, and we also use a logistic regression model to figure it out, with the idea of predicting whether or not they felt valued. Again, I'm not going to go through all the details here. But I think, we were able to identify a few key factors that help determine how valuable or how valued they felt, right? One was how long ago they had, graduated from the university. The longer ago that they had graduated, the less valued they felt. Not overly surprising. We were able to find like kind of an age band in which they were more or less likely to feel valued, and obviously donations, how much that they had donated to school, the more they had donated to school, the more likely they were to kind of feel valued. We also were able to tie that to some other, data about how they preferred to receive information from the university, and as well as what is kind of the format in which they consumed the information from the university. And so we were able to find some differences there amongst those who felt valued versus those that didn't feel valued, and where they liked to receive their information. What were the messages that kind of would help make people feel more valued, and then key those communication mechanisms around messages that would appeal to whoever was kind of consuming that sort of media. So that's again a way to kind of tailor that message in a way that's not just a big blast, but is more likely to appeal to the segment that you're trying to reach. The other thing that we do a lot of is these interactive dashboards, a lot in Power BI and Tableau. That's a lot of part of our work, being able to drill down into the survey data, to identify patterns, and to identify segments that are of interest to a particular client. This is a dashboard, example of a few different things from a dashboard that we built for our client with the Resort Development Association about some of their key industry operating performance metrics. That's another area where we do a lot of work, where we are either collecting operating metrics that we publish in a report, or we're collecting things that our economist colleagues use in model building. And so, being able to present that in a way that's consumable for our clients, and also allows them to kind of have interaction with the data, is something that's critical for us. Again, I referenced, our economist colleagues. So I probably didn't mention it, but the name of my group is Quantitative Economics and Statistics. So we are a team of about 45 or so economists and statisticians. We have some PhD economists, PhD statisticians. We have some folks that are master's level like myself. And then we also have a number of people that would be coming straight out of undergrad and starting with us and spending usually a few years with us before they go off to graduate school. And so, a lot of times what we're doing is we're helping our economists build models, of our data by collecting some survey information and then marrying it to like census data or things like that. We've had a lot of work over the last 2 years, dealing with COVID, helping health departments, identify messages that will appeal to get people more likely to take vaccines, more likely to take, measures that are designed to kind of help them, practice physical distancing and mask wearing and things like that, and test those out with the population and how that's how they can successfully tailor that message. And then what's become really popular lately is kind of identifying areas within a state or within a county or within regions where health equity is an issue. So where even taking into account kind of the political persuasions of a particular region, a vaccine uptake is less likely to take place than you would expect, because there's not the infrastructure to provide the vaccines, there's not proper messaging of the importance and the safety and the efficacy of the vaccines. A lot of different infrastructure, health related issues that cause those zip codes, those localities to be less likely to have access to health measures, or to kind of refuse access to those health measures. And so our economists have built a number of models in that respect. And so a lot of our survey data, regression models, and a lot of our survey data kind of feeds into that, some of that they're doing. It also is an area where we're using these kind of interactive dashboards to help our clients kind of see where these pockets of health equity are having problems. And then finally, as I mentioned, we have these economists, and they're doing these kind of forecasting models. Again, a lot of regression, a lot of time series forecasting, things like that. Again, I'm not going to go into all the details of that, but we are putting out a lot of these products both internally within EY, to kind of brand our economists in terms of their knowledge of what's going on. And then this is something that we also send out to our trade association clients to help them understand kind of the economic implications of what's going on, both with COVID, with upcoming tax changes, about a number of different things. So that's kind of what my work that I do specifically is, and how it relates to math, and then more broadly, kind of the work that I do, that my group beyond what I just do, and kind of where math is involved. Gives you a sense of that. Okay, so last thing, now that you understand what I do, what my background is, what's my advice for undergraduates? This is what I usually give to them, kind of as the last part of my talk, as you're thinking about, that question that I posed at the title, math, what are you going to do with that? And really what you're going to do, with your career, and what are the opportunities that are out there. So I always like to, why are you not going for it? I always like to share this slide. It's getting bit out of date now, so I may probably need to update it, but I emphasize that EY in particular has really increased its focus on hiring people with STEM backgrounds. This is not just true at EY, this is true at all of the big four accounting firms. It's true at places like Goldman Sachs, it's true at a lot of the consulting agencies that we're competing against. This is an area where firms are looking to hire more and more people to do analytics, to do financial models, to do economic models, and they're looking for people. They're looking for not just economists, or even people in statistics. They're looking for people with pure and applied math backgrounds, right? And they want people that think like that to come and work for them. And so that's just an area where we've seen an explosion of growth really over the last 5 to 10 years in terms of opportunities for math students. So what are the skills that you need in order to be successful at a place like EY or a place similar to that? The first thing is an analytical mindset and the ability to think creatively, right? Is to be able to take some of these techniques that you may have learned about in your math undergrad or grad programs, and think about ways to apply them to the work that you do. I think that's really something that has helped the people that I've seen be successful at EY do that. Is they're not kind of looking for just kind of one type of problem that they're going to solve, and seeing everything as a nail when they just have a hammer, but really having a lot of things in their toolbox to be able to apply to problems that clients have, and to be able to think of them in a different kind of way. Programming, obviously, is something that we just have always have a great need for. We have historically done a lot of our work in SAS. When I came to EY 20 years ago, That's pretty much all we used. We had a big room with a bunch of workstation computers that people would go into and run SAS models with and build all this kind of crazy SAS code. We still have a part of our practice that does use a lot of SAS. My part of the practice doesn't. I mainly use R, Python. I do a lot of stuff directly. A lot of stuff can be done directly in Qualtrics now in terms of the analysis and things like that. Power BI, Tableau, dashboarding, kind of the interactive dashboarding. That's become popular. That's a great skill to have. And then basic Excel and PowerPoint, gets you a long way. An ability to be able to do that. I'm continually shocked by, how little a lot of the people that come to us know about Excel, because it's a basic tool, but it's still very powerful. And so it's definitely something that I would encourage, you to learn about. You don't have to necessarily learn about it in your classes. I taught myself. I know a lot about Excel now, but I taught myself a lot about it just by doing my own kind of personal finance and stuff like that on it. And so just kind of playing around with it. It's something that is easy to do. And then the last one is kind of a softer skill, but it's that relationship building that I was talking about at the beginning. Not cutting yourself off, but being willing to connect with people that you don't know, 5 years down the road, maybe working at a place that turns out to be perfect for you, and continuing to foster those relationships within school, within graduate school, and then after you and that's it. That's the end of my talk and my advice. So I welcome any questions you have or any discussion points. I'd love to talk about it more. If I stop sharing?
Yeah, thank you so much. That was a nice talk. Matthew, you're the boss.
All right, guys, if there are any questions from the audience, feel free to either put them in the chat, unmute yourself, or send them to me.
Joe, let me ask you another question.
Yeah.
What's the main ideas about analytics that non-analytics people should know?
The main ideas about analytics that non-analytics people should know. It's a good question.
I like the question, by the way. Thanks for asking.
You like the question. All right. I think, it's really, it shouldn't be as intimidating as it sounds. There's a lot of tools that are available to do it, but I think a lot of people just want the computer to just do it for them. And computers are not that good yet, right? There still needs to be people that can kind of speak enough of that language to be able to translate it, but it's not as hard as it seems. It just requires a little bit of time and effort, but computers can do a lot of what you need it to do for you. Like Power BI can do a lot of that analytical work for you. It just takes I remember I had a survey and there was a partner who I was working with. And I told them, we were going to be doing the analysis in Power BI, and he had never heard of it. But he was just kind of the kind of guy who liked to get his hands dirty with data. And so he just started getting into it. And he was like, oh, wow, this is great. And now he uses it all the time. But he doesn't have like a math background, but he, just because he likes to get his hands dirty with data, he excelled at it. So, I think it's like kind of two sides of the same coin. It's like, don't think that the computer can do everything for you, but yet don't think that you can't do it because you can. Even if you don't have like this super math background, if you kind of get into it and understand what the computer is trying to do, you can speak that language and be able to share it with other people and uncover insights that really don't take a lot of huge, like, you don't need to know how to do a third order derivative or understand topology or things like that.
So one question that I might have for you would be, what is a biggest struggle between taking the analytics that you have and converting those into something that someone else can understand? So taking those meaningful conclusions that you draw from your data and communicating those, is that a big struggle, or how does that work?
It is. I think the main thing is remembering that you're trying to tell a story, right? People like stories. They like heroes, they like antagonists, they like drama. And so telling the story of the data and having a beginning and middle end, and having kind of what is the importance, what's the outcome of what you're doing, that kind of draws people in. If you're just kind of telling the numbers and going through a table of numbers, I think that's very hard for people to relate to. But if you can illustrate that data with examples, and that's why working a lot of times with subject matter professionals, although they can be frustrating, it is important, because they are the ones that, like, if I say, okay, here's the 4 groups of this data, within this survey data that exists, they're the ones that can say, oh yeah, I see Johnny in that group, right? And here's what happened to Johnny when his manager didn't do a good job of involving him in problem solving, and kind of just turn all of that basic patterns that you're finding in the data into real live stories, and how those things can be impacted.
Awesome, thank you.
I have one question.
Yes.
So in one of the slides, you were talking about some skill sets for students to have in your subject field.
Mm-hmm.
And then something caught my attention, that you were talking about robotics and AI. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so we have a huge practice that is doing a lot of robotics and AI. A lot of the applications of that are in fraud detection. And as you can imagine, in an audit practice, we're kind of looking a lot of times for, there's a big kind of financial kind of forensics practice. And so you're looking through a lot of data and looking for ways to kind of automate what, people are looking for in terms of fraudulent transactions or things like that. Is an area where robots can be really and artificial intelligence can be really helpful. And so we've had a number of people that have found applications that have taken things that we spend tens of thousands of hours on, and kind of done something that's makes it automatic. And it's powerful because it frees our people up to focus on things that are more interesting to them than reading through thousands of records on a ledger. Things like that. That's the kind of thing that robots are really good at. And people are not so good at, because who wants to do that?
Thank you.
But I would say over the last 5 years, that's really become a big focus of EY, is robotics and automation, and a lot of it is we're working with a lot of tax authorities as well, and so looking for ways so that government agencies are not having to kind of look through everybody's tax returns, or even tax calculations can be done in real time, as opposed to waiting until April till everybody fills out a form. But all that stuff can be automated. That's where I think the tax authorities that's the direction that tax authorities are going towards. And so we're trying to help our clients understand the implications of that and how they can ready themselves for that. I'm starting to get a little bit out of my depth, because that's not an area where I work directly in, but that's an area where I know the firm has committed a lot of resources, and they're doing a lot of work in that area. And so if there are students that you have that are interested in that sort of thing, I can definitely connect them, with people who, can tell them about a lot more about what the firm is doing in that space. So that's probably a good segue into, as you come around students who may be looking for what is my next step with a career in mathematics. A lot of times what happens is when I give these talks, they're reaching out to me, and many times I'm able to kind of connect them, even if it's not my department itself. I typically will know somebody who's interested in what they're doing. But the firm itself is just, that's something that they're hiring for a lot. And so, I would encourage you even to just look on our website, and you'll find tons of opportunities in that space.
It's really interesting that so many of my friends who did their PhDs in control theory are switching into data analytics, and some of them are even engineers.
Yeah.
So just like in your firm or under your supervision, do you have any engineers really, or having that kind of like?
No, not engineers, but what I will say is this: we tend to hire a lot of statistics majors and econ majors, some math majors as well. Used to be when I first started working here, what we do is we hire people out of undergraduate. They usually work for us 2 to 4 years, and they'll go back to a graduate school, right? Used to be all those people went to schools of public policy. They went to statistics programs afterwards. Some of them went to law school, MBA, etc. In the last, I would say 5 years, almost all of them have gone to some data analytics grad school program, like either the ones at Northwestern, MIT, Harvard, a lot of those places, because that's just become, as you mentioned, like a lot of people are kind of switching into that area. And so as they are doing a lot of this work that we're doing, and they're seeing what's happening at EY, they're just kind of being drawn to that next step in their education.
Thank you.
For those of us who are still doing some of our education and stuff, is there any kind of something that you would advise us to steer really towards or steer away from? Just kind of, if you were to do it again in our shoes, what would be the biggest change?
So for myself, I think I kind of alluded to it, is like, don't be afraid to, to study as much math as you can, as many different kinds of math, even if you don't think it has like a lot of real life applications. So what, who cares, right? You get a lot of that stuff in your summer internships, in your, extracurricular work and all that stuff. And then, I would say, learn, like I said before, it doesn't have to be a class, teach yourself programming. A lot of times when we're interviewing people, the most impressive people are folks that have kind of taught themselves either programming or Excel, Power BI or Tableau, those kinds of things. So look for ways to kind of teach yourself those kinds of things. It doesn't have to be through a class. It can be, through some little project that you have kind of on the side, or through a work that you get with a professor where you're building a model for them. Look for opportunities to do that, because that's things that make people stand out. And it's also, when you get involved in that kind of work, like with a professor, that kind of research, it's usually something that you can speak to at length when you have an interview. And it's always impressive, when you have an interview, to be able to kind of go into depth into something that you clearly are kind of excited about, and it makes people kind of stand out when they're able to do that.
Awesome, thank you.
I don't know if you were looking for me to say don't take don't take linear algebra, but but that's all of it is good, like topology, real analysis, all of it's good. I miss it all, so take it all, but also on the side, kind of help yourself with some real world kind of hands-on stuff.
Absolutely, thank you.
What are the bare minimums for like the internship positions? Nothing?
No bare minimums.
What should I tell my students?
What's that?
What should I tell my students in terms of like skill sets they should have?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, a lot, like, I don't even think, it's just like being able to program and have that kind of mindset. Like, there's not even a specific language. I mean, I guess you could say R and Python, but even there, I mean, my philosophy is once you know how to program, you know how to program, and all programming is just Google anyway nowadays. I mean, you just find some code, you modify it, right? Just being able to have that ability to do that is what you need to be able to do. And you can learn SAS, you can learn R, you can learn stuff here, right? But there's certain classes that we like if you haven't had calculus, and that's not going to work out for you. But none of your students have that problem, so that's going to be fine. Taking some basic statistics classes or even econ classes is helpful for us. But I mean, that's just my group, right? UI as a whole, I think just a wide variety of classes and things like that is going to be helpful. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you, UI is really competitive. It's one of the things people like to cite is that it's harder to get a job at UI than it is to get into Harvard, right? I think that's a little overblown, but it's at the same time there's a certain amount of truth to that. I mean, it's like we're not taking people that have 3.1 GPAs, right? Where we're people that come to work for us almost exclusively in the resumes that I'm looking at, are near high threes, GPA and things like that. So, and they have multiple internships over the summer, research projects that they've done with professors. I mean, we're not and I just say that because that's what I typically see. That's who you're going to be competing against. You're looking for an internship or a position at UI. That's kind of people that are coming on for us.
Thank you.
All right, I'll ask if there's any more questions.
I have one more question, in fact.
Yeah.
Maybe I have most questions here. So you said that you wanted to go back to teaching, right? At some point in the future. So what is the course that you really want to teach that you think is more relevant to students going into the industry?
That's a good question. So I knew what I was going to answer until you added that last part in. It was calculus, right? Because I love calculus and I taught calculus. I think I was telling you before I came on, I did an adjunct where I taught calculus, and I don't think I really learned calculus until I taught it, right? I mean, I understood it. I knew how to do a derivative. I knew how to do an integral, right? I knew how to do all that stuff. But once I had to actually explain it to people, I was like, oh, this is why I'm learning the mean value theorem. And I didn't understand why I was doing that. But now I understand what it has to do with, why there's a path, towards from that limits of mean value theorems to derivatives and integrals and all that stuff. So that would have been my answer. But, if I had to come up with a course, now it may be probably some series of data analytics techniques that included, something on data visualization, like Power BI and Tableau, something in like that, but that also included maybe some kind of R programming, stuff like that, and what are some applications of that, kind of real world, kind of data analytics techniques. That's probably something that would lend itself naturally to my experience that I might be able to cobble something together and teach. But I don't know if I do end up teaching that's what I would end up doing. I probably would just teach calculus.
Great answer.
Or like abstract algebra, because I love that too. But that's not the question you were asking.
No. Any other questions for the speaker?
I don't remember enough abstract algebra to teach it, so I think I would disqualify myself. But I love that class.
I don't teach abstract algebra or linear algebra recently, so I mean.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a thing where I haven't looked at it in 25 years, so I wouldn't remember. I know the word homomorphism, but That's it. That's as far as I can go. But I remember we used to. Oh gosh, we were such nerds. We would make jokes about isomorphisms. We were isomorphic too. Math humor never gets old. Right? So anyway, I digress. I'm off the subject of your question.
Okay. Any other question? Normally, when we have this kind of like Q&A session, people watch it later because we put the video available on YouTube. Normally, I check the attendees and stuff. Normal rate for a video is like over 100 after we put the video in. So hopefully this will be helpful for some people interested in this topic. Well, I really want to thank you very much for, again, accepting our invitation. So I think that's it, right? So if there's no other question, I think this was a wonderful talk, and hopefully we will want to have someone like you again talking about the data analytics and surveys and things. It's a fun talk. I really enjoyed it myself.
Good. And if there are students who are interested in opportunities, I'm happy to talk to them and see if there's something that might be a good fit for them.
Great, thank you very much. All right, I think the meeting is adjourned, and thanks for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
In the fall semester.
Yep. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.